Relax. Just for a moment, let the muscles in your shoulders soften. Let your breath slow down. Let the urgency that has been chasing you take a seat beside you instead of running your life. Because the very first truth your soul wants you to remember is this: you are not late. You are not behind. You are not off course. You are not missing anything that was meant for you. You are standing precisely where life has brought you for a reason that may not yet be visible to the thinking mind, but is already known by the deeper intelligence within you. So many people walk through life with a quiet anxiety humming beneath everything they do, an unspoken fear that says, I should be further along by now. I should have figured this out already. I should be someone else, somewhere else, living a different life. And without realizing it, that belief becomes a constant act of resistance against the present moment. You resist where you are. You argue with reality. You measure yourself against an imaginary timeline that the universe never agreed to follow. But the soul does not live by clocks. The soul lives by alignment. And alignment never asks, how fast are you moving? It only asks, are you present? Are you honest? Are you willing to listen? The truth is, life is not something that happens to you. It happens through you. And the moment you stop trying to outrun it, the moment you stop forcing yourself into a future that feels heavy and tense, something miraculous begins to unfold. You begin to feel carried rather than pushed, guided rather than pressured, held rather than judged. There is a wisdom orchestrating your life that is infinitely more intelligent than your worries. It does not make mistakes. It does not rush. It does not forget you. It knows exactly when each door is meant to open, and it also knows when a door must remain closed until you are ready to walk through it without fear. If you are feeling stuck right now, it is not because you have failed. It is because something in you is being refined. If you are feeling uncertain, it is not because you are lost. It is because the old map no longer applies and a deeper form of guidance is asking to take over. If you are feeling tired, it is not because you are weak. It is because you have been trying to do with effort what can only be done with trust. You see, the ego believes that growth happens through struggle, control, and constant proving. It tells you that peace comes after achievement, after validation, after success, after you finally become enough. But the soul knows something entirely different. The soul knows that peace is the starting point, not the reward. And from peace, everything else unfolds naturally. Think of a river. The river does not strain to reach the ocean. It does not panic when it encounters a bend or a rock. It does not compare itself to other rivers and wonder if it is flowing fast enough. It simply follows its nature. And because it follows its nature, it always arrives. You are no different. Every experience you have lived, every delay, every disappointment, every moment that felt like a detour has been shaping your awareness, not punishing you, not holding you back, preparing your heart to recognize what truly matters, preparing your mind to release illusions that no longer serve you, preparing your spirit to live from a place of authenticity rather than fear. When you look back on your life, you may see moments you wish you could change, decisions you regret, paths you think you should not have taken. But from a higher perspective, nothing has been wasted. Every step has been part of your awakening, even the moments that hurt, especially the moments that hurt. Because pain has a way of breaking open the places where truth has been waiting to enter. There are no wrong turns on a path guided by consciousness. There are only lessons that deepen your capacity to love, to understand, and to let go. And letting go is where the new beginning truly begins. Let go of the idea that you must struggle to be worthy. Let go of the belief that your value depends on productivity, comparison, or approval. Let go of the habit of telling yourself that you will be at peace someday when the conditions are finally right. Because someday is a story the ego tells to avoid being present now. Now is where life is happening. Now is where healing begins. Now is where the door quietly opens. The moment you stop arguing with the present moment is the moment the present moment starts working for you instead of against you. When you say yes to where you are, without resentment and without resignation, you create space for transformation that effort alone can never produce. Acceptance is not giving up. It is aligning with truth. And the truth is this: you cannot be anywhere other than where you are meant to be in this moment. Even your confusion has purpose. Even your waiting has meaning. Even your uncertainty is fertile ground for a deeper kind of clarity that does not come from thinking, but from listening. Stillness is not empty. Stillness is intelligent. When you slow down enough to be still, you begin to hear a quieter voice beneath the noise of fear and expectation. It does not shout, it does not demand, it gently reminds you, you are safe, you are guided, you are becoming. This voice has always been with you. It was there before you learned to doubt yourself. It was there before you learned to measure your worth by outcomes. It was there before you were taught to believe that love must be earned. It is the voice of your true self, and your true self is not in a hurry. The universe does not operate on urgency. It operates on harmony. Things come together not when you force them, but when you are aligned with who you really are. And alignment happens when you relax into trust rather than tightening into fear. Ask yourself gently, what if this moment is not a mistake? What if this pause is not a delay, but an invitation? What if the very thing you have been resisting is the doorway to your next expansion? When you stop trying to escape the present, you discover that the present has been quietly trying to free you all along. Freedom does not come from changing everything around you. It comes from changing the way you see. When your perception shifts, your experience follows. When you stop seeing yourself as behind, broken, or incomplete, you begin to notice the subtle ways life has been supporting you all along. The people who drifted away were making room. The plans that fell apart were clearing space. The uncertainty was loosening your grip on an identity that could not go with you where you are going. A new beginning does not always announce itself with excitement. Sometimes it arrives as fatigue, as dissatisfaction, as a quiet sense that the old way no longer fits. This is not failure. This is evolution. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to remember who you were before fear convinced you that you were not enough. And you are enough, not because of what you will accomplish, but because of what you already are. When you live from this truth, life becomes less of a battle and more of a dialogue. You stop pushing and start cooperating. You stop chasing and start allowing. And in that allowing, opportunities arise that could never be forced. Trust does not mean you will never act. It means your actions come from clarity rather than panic, from inspiration rather than insecurity, from love rather than lack. There is an intelligence within you that knows exactly how to move forward when the time is right. Your only task is to stop drowning it out with noise and doubt. So relax. Let this moment be enough. Let yourself breathe without needing answers. Let yourself rest without guilt. Let yourself be here without judgment. Because from this place of acceptance, something extraordinary begins to grow. A calm confidence, a quiet strength, a deep knowing that you are being led even when you cannot see the path yet. You do not need to have everything figured out to begin again. You only need to be willing to trust that life is unfolding for you, not against you. And when you look back one day, you will see that this moment, this exact moment, was not a pause in your journey. It was the moment you stopped resisting and started aligning. The moment you stopped forcing and started allowing. The moment you finally understood that peace is not the end of the path, but the beginning. Relax. You are exactly where you need to be. And something beautiful is already on its way. And as you remain here, breathing gently inside this awareness, something subtle but profound begins to reveal itself. You notice that the need to explain your life, to justify your choices, to defend your pace, starts to dissolve. There is a quiet relief in realizing that you were never required to convince the universe of your worth. The universe already knows you. It knows you beyond your resume, beyond your mistakes, beyond the stories you tell yourself late at night when doubt creeps in. It knows you as an extension of its own intelligence, temporarily expressed as a human being learning how to remember. When you truly absorb this, the tension you've been carrying loosens its grip. The mind has been working overtime, trying to predict, control, and protect. But the heart has always known that protection does not come from vigilance, it comes from alignment. The heart understands that when you are in harmony with who you are, life reorganizes itself around that truth. Circumstances shift, encounters change, opportunities appear without strain, not because you chased them, but because you became receptive to them. There is a sacred rhythm moving through everything. Seasons change without effort. The sun rises without consulting your plans. Flowers bloom without questioning their worthiness. And yet, as human beings, We often believe we must earn our right to be here. We place conditions on our peace. We tell ourselves that we will relax once we arrive somewhere else, become someone else, fix something else. But peace postponed is peace denied. And life, in its infinite compassion, keeps inviting you back to now, because now is the only place where truth can be experienced. The ego resists this simplicity. It thrives on complexity, on comparison, on endless striving. It whispers that rest is laziness, that surrender is weakness, that trust is naive. But these are the voices of fear masquerading as wisdom. True wisdom is gentle. It does not shout. It does not rush you. It simply reminds you that you are not separate from the flow of life. You are the flow, temporarily aware of itself. As this awareness deepens, you may begin to feel a softness towards your past. Not because everything that happened was easy or fair, but because you see it differently now. You see that the past was not a collection of errors, but a series of awakenings in disguise. Each moment shaped your capacity to see, to feel, to choose more consciously. Even the moments you wish had never happened carried seeds of insight that could not have grown any other way. Forgiveness, then, becomes natural. Not as a moral obligation, but as an act of self-liberation. You forgive not because others were right, but because you are ready to be free. Free from carrying old stories into new moments. Free from letting yesterday define today. Free from mistaking memory for identity. You are not what happened to you. You are not the labels you were given. You are not the roles you outgrew. You are the awareness, witnessing all of it. And awareness is spacious. It does not cling. It allows experiences to pass through, leaving behind wisdom instead of wounds. When you live from this place, you no longer fear change. Change becomes a companion rather than a threat. You understand that endings are not punishments, they are transitions. And beginnings do not require force, they require openness. This openness is a kind of courage the world rarely talks about. It is the courage to be still when everything urges you to hurry. The courage to trust when certainty is unavailable. The courage to listen inwardly when external voices grow loud. This courage does not announce itself with confidence. It reveals itself as quiet steadiness. And from this steadiness, intuition begins to speak more clearly, not as dramatic commands, but as subtle nudges. A feeling of expansion here, a sense of contraction there, a knowing that something aligns, even if it doesn't make sense yet. When you honor these signals, you are no longer navigating life through fear. You are navigating it through resonance. Life responds differently to resonance. When you act from alignment, doors open without struggle. When you speak from truth, your words carry weight without force. When you choose from love rather than fear, outcomes unfold in ways that thinking alone could never design. This is not mysticism removed from reality. This is the practical intelligence of living in harmony with your own nature. And your nature is not frantic. Your nature is not lacking. Your nature is whole. The moment you stop trying to become whole is the moment you recognize that you already are. From here, a new beginning does not feel like a dramatic leap. It feels like a gentle turning toward yourself, a willingness to honor what feels real rather than what looks impressive, a commitment to inner alignment over outer approval. This is where lasting change begins, not in pressure, but in presence. So stay here a little longer. Let the mind rest. Let the breath remind you that life is supporting you in each moment effortlessly. You are not being tested. You are being taught, not pushed, guided, not delayed, prepared. And when you move forward, and you will, it will not be because you were afraid to stay still. It will be because something within you felt ready, clear, and calm. Ready not because everything was perfect, but because you trusted yourself enough to begin. This is the quiet miracle available to you now. Not someday, not after. Now, and in this now, the soul smiles, because it recognizes that you are finally listening. And as you continue listening inwardly, something else softens the habit of measuring your life against imagined standards. You notice how often the mind has been trained to ask, am I doing this right? Rather than, is this true for me? And in that noticing, a gentler question emerges, one that carries no judgment at all. What feels aligned right now? This question does not demand a grand answer. It asks only for honesty in this moment. And honesty, when it is free of fear, becomes the doorway to peace. Alignment is rarely loud. It does not arrive with fireworks or applause. More often, it feels like relief, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long, like setting down a heavy bag you forgot you were carrying. When you choose alignment, you stop performing your life and start inhabiting it. You stop living as an idea of who you should be and begin living as the presence you already are. This is where true power lives, not in dominance or control, but in coherence. When your thoughts, your actions, and your values move in the same direction, life stops feeling fragmented. You no longer feel pulled apart by conflicting desires. There's a quiet integrity that begins to guide you, a sense that you do not have to abandon yourself to belong anywhere. Belonging, you realize, was never meant to be earned externally. It begins internally, the moment you stop rejecting parts of yourself in exchange for approval. When you welcome yourself fully, your doubts, your sensitivity, your questions, you create an inner home that no circumstance can take away. And from this inner home, you engage with the world not as someone seeking validation, but as someone offering presence. Presence changes everything. When you are present, you listen more deeply, not just to words, but to energy. You feel when a conversation nourishes you and when it drains you. You sense when an opportunity resonates and when it is rooted in fear. You no longer need to force clarity, because clarity arises naturally when you stop crowding it with urgency. This is why stillness is so powerful. In stillness, the noise of conditioning quiets down. The voices that once told you to hurry, to compare, to prove, lose their authority. And in their place, a deeper intelligence speaks not in language, but in knowing. A knowing that does not explain itself because it does not need to. This knowing understands that life unfolds in waves, not straight lines. That growth includes pauses. That rest is not a detour, but part of the journey. When you honor these rhythms, you stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, life stops feeling like a battlefield. There is a profound kindness in recognizing that you are allowed to be human while remembering you are also divine. You are allowed to feel uncertainty without labeling it failure. You are allowed to need time without calling it weakness. The soul does not judge the pace of its own becoming. It trusts the process because it is the process. And the process is always bringing you back to love. Not the conditional love that depends on outcomes, but the steady love that exists simply because you exist. This love is not something you must attract or deserve. It is the source from which you came and the truth to which you return. When you align with this love, you naturally release what contradicts it. Resentment, self-criticism, the need to be right, the need to be seen a certain way. What remains is freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is no longer being driven by fear. It is choosing from awareness rather than reaction. It is trusting that you can respond to life as it unfolds, rather than rehearsing it endlessly in your mind. In this freedom, the future loses its grip on you, and the past loosens its hold. You begin to see that every moment is offering you a choice, not between success and failure, but between presence and resistance. And each time you choose presence, you step more fully into your true identity. Not the identity shaped by expectation, but the one rooted in being. This is the quiet revolution taking place within you now. No force, no drama, just a steady remembering. And as this remembering deepens, you feel a readiness, not rushed, not pressured, but grounded. A readiness to move when movement is called for, to rest when rest is needed, to speak when truth asks to be voiced, to listen when silence carries more wisdom than words. From this place, your next steps will not be frantic. They will be deliberate without being heavy, inspired without being forced. You will act, not to escape where you are, but to express who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is not separate from who you have always been. It is simply the part of you that no longer hides. So let the unfolding continue. Let the answers arrive in their own time. Let yourself trust this deeper current that has been guiding you long before you learned to doubt it. You are not waiting for life to begin. Life is already happening through you, and in this gentle awareness, the new beginning is no longer something you anticipate. It is something you are living, quietly, consciously, one present moment at a time. And now, as everything settles into this deeper listening, there is nothing left to search for, nothing left to grasp, Nothing left to become in order to be whole. There is only this gentle recognition unfolding quietly within you that life has never been withholding itself. It has been waiting for you to stop standing in your own way. You feel it now not as excitement, not as certainty, but as peace. A peace that does not depend on circumstances aligning perfectly. A peace that exists beneath the surface of every condition, steady and available. This peace does not ask you to understand everything. It only asks you to trust the intelligence that brought you here, to this moment, to this breath. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You were never meant to solve life like a problem. Life is not a puzzle to be completed. It is a presence to be lived. And the moment you allow yourself to simply be, without striving or resisting, you feel how gently life responds, as if it has been waiting for this softening, this surrender, this quiet yes. There is a freedom in no longer demanding that the future reassure you, in no longer asking tomorrow to validate today. When you rest in the now, the future loses its power to intimidate you. It becomes an extension of the present, shaped not by fear, but by awareness. And awareness always moves toward harmony. You may notice that your desires change here. They become simpler, more honest, less about proving and more about expressing, less about accumulation and more about meaning. You begin to want what nourishes rather than what impresses, what feels true rather than what looks successful. This is not a loss of ambition, it is a refinement of intention. And with that refinement comes clarity. Clarity does not shout, it whispers. It comes as a quiet confidence that you do not need to rush your unfolding, that each step will reveal itself when it is meant to, that you will recognize what is for you, not by tension, but by ease, not by pressure, but by resonance. You are learning now how to live from the inside out, to let your inner state be the source rather than the result of your experience, to choose peace first and let action arise from that ground. This is the essence of inner freedom, the freedom to respond to life as it is without being ruled by how it appears. And as this freedom deepens, you feel a profound gratitude, not only for what has gone right, but for what has challenged you. Not only for what you understand, but for what has stretched you beyond what you thought you could endure. Because you see now that every moment was shaping your capacity to be present, to be compassionate, to be awake. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was meant to break you. Everything was meant to bring you home to yourself. And here you are, not perfected, not finished, but real, awake, available, standing in the quiet power of simply being. This is where new beginnings are born, not from effort, but from alignment, not from force, but from trust, not from fear, but from love. So as you move forward, let it be gently, let it be consciously, let it be guided by the knowing that you are supported by something far greater than your plans, something that moves through you when you allow, when you listen, when you let go. Relax into this truth. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are not lost. You are right on time, exactly where you need to be, unfolding as life itself. And in this quiet certainty, there is nothing more to do, nowhere else to be, and nothing more to become, only this living presence carrying you forward peacefully into all that is yet to come. Take a slow, conscious breath right now, not to escape anything, not to fix anything, but simply to arrive. Arrive in this moment where your heart is still beating on purpose and your breath is moving with an intelligence far greater than your own. Before any thought rushes in, before the mind begins its familiar inventory of concerns, there is already a quiet truth present, whispering beneath the noise. You are held. You have always been held. The very fact that you are here, listening, sensing, feeling, is evidence of a divine orchestration that has never abandoned you for a single second. Trust begins here, not as an idea you must force yourself to accept, but as a remembering of what has always been true. Worry, in its deepest form, is not really about the future. It is about forgetting who is in charge. It is the mind's attempt to play the role of God, to control outcomes, predict dangers, and manage life as though the universe were fragile and easily broken. Yet the same intelligence that causes the sun to rise without anxiety and the seasons to unfold without hesitation is the intelligence breathing you right now. When you worry, you momentarily step away from that truth and place your faith in fear instead. When you trust, You return home to the understanding that life knows what it is doing, even when your personal perspective feels small and uncertain. Every new day is not a burden to survive, but an invitation to release. Release the stories you have been rehearsing about what might go wrong. Release the old memories that keep knocking on your mind's door, demanding attention, demanding explanation, demanding emotional energy that was never meant to be spent on the past. The past has already served its purpose. It has shaped you, refined you, softened you in ways you may not yet fully appreciate. Carrying it forward like a heavy suitcase only blocks your ability to receive what this moment is offering. Trust does not mean denying what has happened. It means refusing to let yesterday dictate the peace available to you today. Notice how worry tightens the body. It shortens the breath, clenches the jaw, and contracts the heart. Trust does the opposite. Trust softens. Trust opens. Trust allows you to breathe more deeply, to stand more gently in the world, to move with a sense of cooperation rather than resistance. When you trust God more, life does not suddenly become perfect, but it becomes meaningful. Even challenges take on a different quality. They no longer feel like punishments or signs that something has gone wrong. They begin to look like invitations for growth, opportunities for expansion, lessons wrapped in difficult packaging. There is a quiet wisdom within you that already knows this. You have felt it in moments when something didn't work out the way you planned, only to later realize that it protected you from a path that would have drained your spirit. You have seen it when doors closed that you were certain you needed, only to discover that those closures redirected you towards something more aligned with who you were becoming. Trust is not blind optimism, it is informed faith. It is the understanding born from lived experience that life often knows better than the limited vision of the anxious mind. The ego thrives on worry because worry keeps it relevant. If you are constantly afraid of what might happen, the ego can remain in control, offering endless strategies, defenses, and worst-case scenarios. But the soul does not speak in fear. The soul speaks in quiet assurance. It reminds you that you are not here to micromanage the universe. You are here to participate in it, to cooperate with it, to allow yourself to be guided by something infinitely wiser than your conditioned thoughts. Letting go of worry is not weakness, it is surrender to a higher strength. Trusting God more does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means acting from inspiration rather than desperation. It means making choices from clarity instead of panic. When your actions are rooted in trust, they carry a different energy. They are cleaner, more focused, more effective. You do what you can with love and intention, and then you release the outcome. You understand that your responsibility is the effort, not the result. The result belongs to a divine intelligence that sees the entire landscape, not just the small piece visible from where you stand. As this day unfolds, you may notice the mind trying to pull you back into old habits of worry. It may present convincing arguments, reminding you of bills, responsibilities, conversations, and uncertainties. When that happens, do not fight the mind or judge yourself. Simply observe it with compassion. Say gently and firmly, I choose trust right now. Feel the shift in your body as you do. Feel how even a small moment of trust creates space, how it loosens the grip of fear and allows peace to seep back in. You are never alone in this process. The idea that you must carry everything by yourself is one of the great illusions of the ego. There is a presence moving through your life that arranges meetings, synchronizes timing, and brings support in forms you could never predict. Sometimes it arrives as a person, sometimes as an insight, sometimes as a delay that turns out to be a blessing in disguise. God is always working behind the scenes, not as a distant observer, but as an intimate partner in your becoming. Trust is your way of saying yes to that partnership. Gratitude is one of the most powerful expressions of trust. When you are grateful, even in advance, you acknowledge that something good is already in motion. You shift your attention from what is missing to what is present, from what you fear to what you appreciate. Gratitude does not deny difficulty, it reframes it. It reminds you that even within uncertainty, there is breath, there is awareness, there is life unfolding. Each of these is a gift, offered freely, without condition. Imagine for a moment what your life would feel like if you truly trusted that you are guided, not intellectually, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. Imagine waking up without immediately scanning for problems. Imagine meeting challenges with curiosity rather than dread. Imagine releasing the need to control how others behave, how events unfold, and how quickly things must happen. This is not fantasy. It is a choice available to you in each moment. Trust is not something you wait for, it is something you practice. The mind may ask, but what if something goes wrong? And the soul responds, what if something goes right in ways you cannot yet imagine? Worry always assumes a negative future. Trust opens the door to infinite possibility. When you trust God more, you align yourself with a creative force that has never run out of solutions. You stop limiting life to the size of your fears and begin allowing it to surprise you. Healing begins within this choice. Many of the burdens you carry are not caused by circumstances, but by resistance to what is. When you trust, resistance softens. You stop arguing with reality and start flowing with it. This does not mean you approve of everything that happens. It means you stop exhausting yourself by mentally fighting what already exists. In that surrender, energy returns to you. Clarity returns. Peace, which was never truly gone, becomes accessible again. Your spiritual identity is not defined by how calm you are when life is easy, but by how willing you are to trust when things feel uncertain. Faith is not proven in comfort, it is revealed in transition. And you are in a constant state of becoming, constantly invited to deepen your trust, to release another layer of fear, to remember again that you are a divine being having a human experience, not a fragile human trying to survive a hostile world. As you move through this day, let trust be your quiet companion. Let it walk with you into conversations, decisions, and moments of pause. When something triggers anxiety, let it be a signal, not a sentence. A signal to breathe, to soften, to remember who you are and whose you are. You do not need to know how everything will unfold. You only need to know that you are supported in this moment, and that is always true. Life becomes softer when you stop gripping it so tightly. It becomes lighter when you release the belief that you must carry everything alone. It becomes more meaningful when you recognize that even the ordinary moments are infused with divine presence. Trust God more, not as a rule, not as a demand, but as a loving invitation to rest in what has always been carrying you. So take another breath now, deeper this time. Feel your shoulders relax. Feel your heart open just a little more. Offer whatever worries you have, not with drama, but with humility. Place them gently into the hands of something greater than your thinking mind. Allow yourself to be guided. Allow yourself to be surprised. Allow peace to do what it does best when you stop interfering with it. This day is not an accident. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where you need to be to learn the next lesson, to receive the next insight, to open to the next blessing. Trust is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to walk forward anyway, knowing that you are never truly walking alone. And in that knowing, life meets you with grace again and again, as it always has. And as you continue listening, let yourself notice how the need to be certain has quietly loosened its grip. There is a subtle relief that comes when you stop demanding guarantees from life. The soul was never designed to live inside rigid predictions. It was created to move with trust, to dance with mystery, to grow through faith rather than control. Certainty belongs to the intellect, but peace belongs to the soul. When you choose peace, you give yourself permission to not know everything in advance, to not have all the answers neatly arranged before taking the next step. There is a sacred intelligence guiding your unfolding that does not operate on deadlines, comparisons, or fear-based urgency. It moves in perfect timing, often slower than the ego prefers, yet always more precise than the mind could ever calculate. When you worry, you rush ahead of this intelligence. When you trust, you fall back into rhythm with it. Life then stops feeling like a race to be won and begins to feel like a journey meant to be experienced, savored, and learned from. You may have been taught, subtly or directly, that vigilance is responsible, that worry proves you care, that anxiety is the price of being prepared, but this belief quietly drains your spirit. Caring does not require suffering. Preparation does not require fear. Awareness does not require tension. True responsibility arises from clarity, and clarity is born in calm. When your mind is quiet, intuition can finally be heard. When fear steps aside, guidance steps forward. Think of how nature moves. A river does not worry about the rocks ahead, it flows around them. A tree does not panic during winter, it trusts the return of spring. Everything in the natural world cooperates with life instead of resisting it. You are part of that same intelligence. Trusting God more is simply aligning yourself with the way life itself already works. It is remembering that struggle is optional, but growth is inevitable. There is an inner stillness available to you that does not depend on circumstances. It exists beneath the surface of thoughts, beneath emotional reactions, beneath old conditioning. When you rest there, even briefly, you realize that peace was never missing. It was only obscured by mental noise. Trust acts like a clearing wind, gently moving the clouds of worry so the sky of awareness can reveal itself again. You do not have to resolve your entire life today. You do not have to heal every wound or answer every question before allowing yourself to feel calm. Peace is not a reward you earn after everything is fixed. It is a foundation you choose from which healing naturally occurs. When you trust, you stop postponing peace until some imagined future and allow it to meet you here exactly as you are. There is also a quiet courage in trust. It takes strength to release the illusion of control. It takes humility to admit that something greater than your personal will is at work. Yet in that humility, you are lifted, you are supported. You are carried by a wisdom that sees beyond temporary setbacks and apparent losses. What the ego labels as failure, the soul often recognizes as redirection. Pay attention to how often life has protected you in ways you did not immediately recognize. How many times were you spared from paths that would have narrowed your spirit? How often did delays turn into blessings, endings into beginnings, disappointments into doorways? Trust grows not from blind belief, but from honest reflection on how life has already guided you, even when you resisted it. The practice of trusting God more is not dramatic, it is quiet. It happens in small, ordinary moments, choosing not to replay a fearful thought, pausing before reacting, breathing instead of tightening, listening instead of assuming. These moments accumulate. They reshape your inner landscape. Over time, the nervous system learns that it does not need to stay on alert, that it is safe to soften, that life does not require constant defense. As this trust deepens, you may notice that compassion naturally expands. When you are no longer at war with your own uncertainty, you become gentler with the uncertainty of others. Judgment fades, patience grows, and understanding replaces the need to be right. Trust does not isolate you. It connects you. It dissolves the illusion of separation and reminds you that everyone is navigating their own lessons, guided by the same underlying intelligence. You begin to sense that your worth has never been dependent on outcomes. You are not more valuable when things go well, nor less valuable when they fall apart. Your value is intrinsic, rooted in being itself. Trust allows you to rest in that truth. It frees you from constantly proving yourself, fixing yourself, or earning your place in the world. You already belong. And so you walk forward now with a lighter step, not because you know exactly where the path leads, but because you trust the ground beneath you. You listen more closely to the quiet nudges of intuition. You allow moments of silence to guide you as much as moments of action. You begin to understand that surrender is not giving up on life. It is giving up the struggle against it. Each breath becomes a reminder that you are supported. Each pause becomes an opening for grace. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to practice trust rather than fear. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, worry loses its authority over you. It may still visit, but it no longer rules. Trust takes its place, not loudly, not forcefully, but with a steady presence that feels like coming home. Stay here in this awareness. Let it settle into you. Let it become familiar. This is not something new you must acquire. It is something ancient you are remembering. Trust God more. And notice how life responds, not by removing every challenge, but by meeting you with strength, insight, and peace that were always waiting for your permission to enter. And in this remembering, something subtle yet profound begins to shift. You realize that trust is not a destination you arrive at once and for all, but a living relationship you nurture moment by moment. Each time fear arises and you choose gentleness instead, that relationship deepens. Each time the mind demands proof and you respond with patience, trust takes root more firmly in your awareness. It is not loud or dramatic. It grows quietly, like roots extending into rich soil, unseen yet steadily strengthening everything above the surface. There is a tenderness that comes with this way of living. You stop bracing yourself against life as though it were an adversary. You stop waking up with an invisible armor of tension wrapped around your thoughts. Instead, you meet the day with an openness that says, I am willing to be guided. This willingness is powerful. It signals to life that you are ready to cooperate rather than compete, to listen rather than insist. And life, in its infinite responsiveness, meets that willingness with support that often arrives just when it is needed most. You may notice that when you trust, your inner dialogue softens. The harsh voice that once questioned every choice and predicted every possible mistake begins to lose its urgency. In its place emerges a quieter voice, one that does not shout but simply knows. This voice does not rush you. It does not shame you. It speaks in feelings, in subtle impressions, in moments of calm clarity that arrive when you stop forcing answers. This is the voice of alignment, the voice that has been with you long before you learn to doubt yourself. Trust also changes how you experience time. Worry pulls you relentlessly into an imagined future, while regret drags you back into a fixed past. Trust anchors you here, and here is where life actually happens. Here is where breath moves, where choices are made, where love can be felt. When you live from trust, the present moment stops feeling like a narrow bridge you must rush across and becomes a wide, welcoming space you can inhabit fully. In this space, you begin to see that many of your fears were never about reality itself, but about stories layered on top of it. Stories inherited, learned, repeated, until they felt like truth. Trust gently dissolves these stories, not by arguing with them, but by revealing something deeper underneath. You discover that beneath fear, there is always a desire for safety, for belonging, for peace. And beneath those desires is an unchanging presence that has always been safe, always been whole. As you rest more often in this presence, life feels less like a series of problems to solve and more like a conversation to participate in. You listen for meaning rather than control. You respond rather than react. Even when circumstances challenge you, there is a sense that you are not being singled out or punished. You are being invited to grow in awareness, to expand beyond an old way of seeing yourself in the world. Trust does not eliminate uncertainty, but it transforms your relationship with it. Uncertainty becomes fertile ground rather than a threat. It becomes the space where new possibilities can emerge, where creativity can breathe, where grace can enter. When everything is already decided, there is no room for surprise. Trust keeps the door open. You may also notice that as worry loosens its grip, your body begins to respond, the shoulders soften, the breath deepens. The nervous system learns that it does not need to stay on constant alert. This is not just a mental shift, it is a physical one. Your entire being starts to remember what safety feels like. Healing happens naturally when the body believes it is no longer under threat. There will still be moments when old habits return. The mind may tighten again. Fear may speak with urgency. When this happens, treat yourself with kindness. Trust is not about perfection, it is about return. Each time you notice you have wandered into worry, you are given another opportunity to come back to presence, back to faith, back to the quiet, knowing that you are guided. And so the journey continues, not towards some distant ideal, but deeper into what is already here. Trust becomes less something you do and more something you live from. It informs how you speak, how you listen, how you rest, how you move through the unknown. Life begins to feel less like something happening to you and more like something happening with you. Stay with this unfolding. Let it move at its own pace. You do not need to hurry trust, and you do not need to prove it. Simply allow it to shape you gently, patiently, from the inside out. In doing so, you discover that the peace you were seeking has never been outside of you. It has always been waiting quietly, faithfully, for you to remember that you were never meant to walk this path alone. And now, as this inner landscape settles, there is nothing left to chase and nothing left to defend. You are no longer leaning into the future for reassurance or reaching backward for explanations. You are simply here, breathing in the quiet intelligence of life as it moves through you. This is where trust becomes real, not as a belief, not as a spiritual concept, but as a felt sense of belonging to something vast, benevolent, and unfailingly present. There is a sacred simplicity in this awareness. You begin to see that life has never asked you to be perfect, only present. It has never required you to have all the answers, only the willingness to listen. The moment you stop negotiating with fear, peace steps forward effortlessly. It does not need to be invited loudly. It arrives softly, like dawn light filling a room that was never truly dark. You may feel a gentle humility rising now, not the kind that diminishes you, but the kind that frees you. The humility of knowing that you are guided allows you to relax into your humanity. You no longer need to hold yourself together so tightly. You can let life support you, correct you, redirect you, and even surprise you. Trust does not strip you of your power. It aligns you with a power that was never separate from you. In this alignment, you realize that every breath is a quiet prayer, every moment an opportunity to choose faith over fear. You do not need to ask loudly for guidance. Guidance is already responding to your openness. You do not need to demand peace. Peace emerges naturally when resistance fades. This is the miracle that happens not through effort, but through allowance. Notice how stillness feels now. It is not empty. It is alive. It is full of subtle reassurance, as though life itself is whispering, you are safe to be here. You are safe to trust. And in this stillness, you sense that whatever unfolds next will be met with exactly what you need, not always what you expect, but always what serves your awakening. You are learning gently and patiently that letting go does not mean losing anything essential. What falls away are illusions, false responsibilities, imagined threats, inherited fears that were never yours to carry. What remains is clarity. What remains is presence. What remains is love, steady and unshaken, moving through you as you move through the world. As this understanding deepens, your life begins to reflect it in quiet ways. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of panic. You listen inwardly before reaching outward. And when challenges arise, as they inevitably will, you meet them not as signs of failure, but as invitations to remember who you are. Each challenge becomes a doorway back to trust. There is nothing you need to add to yourself to deserve this peace. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to fix your past or control your future. You only need to remain willing to stay open, to stay present, to stay aligned with the truth that you are supported beyond measure. So let this moment seal itself gently within you, not as an ending, but as a continuation. Carry this softness into your next breath, your next step, your next interaction. Let trust guide your movements the way a quiet compass guides a traveler who no longer doubts the direction of home. Life is not asking you to worry less by force. It is inviting you to trust more by choice. And each time you choose trust, you return to yourself. You return to the knowing that you are never alone, never abandoned, never without guidance. You are part of something exquisitely intelligent, endlessly patient, and deeply loving. Remain here in this awareness as you move forward. Let peace walk with you. Let trust breathe through you. And allow the quiet certainty to settle fully now that all is well, not because everything is perfect, but because you are held, guided, and deeply, irrevocably connected to the source of life itself.